At number one.
All right. This is Travis with The Man Who. It comes in at number 178 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 24 in 1999, number 933 of all time. It is Travis's highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. Man Who did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Travis is ranked number 514 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums. So this is their second studio album. It was released on May 24th, 1999. The genres include pop rock, alternative rock, and guys, I got a new genre that we're getting into.
What?
New genre phase. First time I've heard of it. Post Britpop. This is post Britpop band.
That's not real. That's not real. I refuse to accept that as a real genre.
Well, anyway, there is a post Britpop page on Wikipedia, and it's bands that are very much like Travis. So yeah, so there you go. Artists that influenced Travis include lots of CTS Hall of Famers: Big Star, Jeff Buckley, Nirvana, REM, Teenage Fan Club, The Byrds, The Smiths, Ride, Pixies, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Oasis, Sonic Youth, Radiohead, The Beatles, Stone Roses, and The Smashing Pumpkins. Artists.
There are some I really hear in there, and there's some I don't hear at all of that list in this album. Yep. Interesting.
And not on this album yet, but we'll get to that. Artists that they have influenced or had some influence on include Imagine Dragons, Coldplay, Keane, and Snow Patrol. I believe all of those would be considered. Maybe, I don't know about Imagine Dragons, but definitely Coldplay, Keane, Snow Patrol fall into the post-Britpop genre as well, guys. Post-Britpop.
I have another genre for a lot of them too, but we'll say that more.
Straight trash.
Their highest charting album in the U.S. Was The Invisible Band. That's the one that came out after this. That hit number 39. And in the U.K., The Man Who and The Invisible Band both hit number 1. Their highest charting single in the U.S. is Why Does It Always Rain on Me from this record. That hit number 35. And in the U.K., it's Sing, which hit number 3. That's from The Invisible Band record. The Man Who was among 10 albums nominated for the Best British Album of the previous 30 years by the Brit Awards in 2010. And that album lost to What's the Story, Morning Glory. That is considered the best album of the previous 30 years from 2010, back to I guess that would be 1980, right? Mm-hmm. So a little history of Travis, the band that would become
That seems
Travis.
a little high. That seems a little high to
What's
me.
the story? As
number
the best,
one?
as the best British album from 1980 to 2010. Yeah, that probably seems a bit high, John.
I mean, yeah, I can think of other albums we've talked about that I like more of British.
I like that album quite a bit.
Yeah.
But number one? No, probably not. No. All right, so Travis was originally formed in the late 80s by brothers Chris Martin, not the Chris Martin from Coldplay.
Oh,
This
okay.
is
Wait,
Martin.
this band has a Chris Martin in it?
Well, it started off with Chris Martin and his brother Jeff
on.
Martin.
That
Now,
can't
Martin,
be real.
Martin is spelled Martyn.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a different spelling of Martin from the other Chris Martin. But Chris Martin played the bass, Jeff Martin played keyboards. They also had Simon Jarvis on drums and Andy Dunlop on guitar. And they had a female vocalist by the name of Catherine Maxwell. The original name of the band was Glass Onion, after the Beatles song from the White Album.
Simon Jarvis is like the most British name you can have as a drummer.
It's Jarvis, yeah. I think you have to be British if Jarvis and it's going to be in the name. So there was a couple of changes. Neil Primrose replaced Simon Jarvis on drums. Catherine Maxwell was replaced by Fran Healy in 1991.
Neil Primrose is also a pretty remarkable British band name thing for like your bassist.
Yeah.
Bassist Neil Primrose.
And Fran Healy was a baseball player and used to call games for the Mets, so I always got him confused with. I remembered the band, the lead singer's name, because he's like the Mets guy, Fran Healy. So Fran Healy was actually an art student at the time, and he ended up dropping out of school in 1993 to focus primarily on the band, and he was the one that took on main songwriting responsibilities. They did release an EP in 1993 called the Glass Onion EP, which only 500 copies were made. And it is said that each copy today is worth £1,000. So if you have a copy of this, you could sell it for £1,000, evidently.
Or if you have 500 of them.
There you go, Josh. A&R reps felt like the band had written some pretty decent songs, but the complaint was they weren't good at playing them. And so actually there was an American engineer and producer named Nico Bolas, who worked with artists that he worked with include Neil Young and the Rolling Stones, tuned into a Travis session on a radio station and heard something in the band's music that made him, want to travel to see them. And Fran Healy later said, quote, "He told us we were shit, took us into the studio for 4 days, and then taught us how to play properly like a band. He was ballsy, rude, and New York pushy. He didn't believe my lyrics and told me to write what I believed in, not to tell lies. He was our Mary Poppins. He sorted us out." So
is that how you guys talk about me? You guys, just such full disclosure. No.
New York
ballsy,
pushy.
rude, and New York pushy.
I kind of want to be described exactly like that entire description of him, like both the bad and the good.
You're not far off. At some point, I couldn't find out exactly when, but they eventually changed their name to Travis, and that name comes from a character, Travis Henderson, played by Harry Dean Stanton from the film Paris, Texas. Josh, have you seen Paris, Texas?
I have. It's a great film by Wim Wenders, the German director.
Okay, well, there you go, Josh.
But it's in English, so it's excellent.
Well, that's good. I'd prefer that. That movie is from 1984, so they are Travis now. They had a demo of their song, All I Want to Do Is Rock, and they sent that to Sony Music, and they were signed to Sony based on the strength of that song. And in the immediate aftermath of that, Jeff and Chris Martin were removed from the band and replaced Chris Martin with Fran Healy's best friend.
And replaced by Damon Albarn with a YRN.
Nope. Here you go, John. Here's the name. Dougie Payne.
That is not what I was expecting.
Dougie Payne replaced him on bass, despite the fact that he had never played bass before. So I don't know why they kicked the brothers out or what happened specifically, but they basically replaced them with a guy that's never played the bass before.
Yeah, it's like
I was expecting something like Jackson Birmingham or something was going to be the new. Yeah,
like removed from the band, like they had a shepherd's crook and just pulled them off the stage.
Exit stage left. So for this album, The Man Who, that was produced by Nigel Godrich, and partially recorded and produced at a chateau in France, of course. The majority
taking
of the
it back to like the 60s.
Sex Mansion.
Yeah.
The Sex Chateau. The majority...
Le Sex Chateau to you,
Sexuel de la Chateau, por favor. The majority of the songs were written before the band's debut album, Good Feeling, was released. So that their debut album was from 1997. Are either of you guys familiar with that record?
Which one?
Good Feeling, the Travis's debut album.
No, I'm very familiar with the album after this one, The Invisible Band, but not the first one.
It's interesting. So it's we could talk about that, but it's got a different vibe from this record. It's definitely different. So the title of The Man Who is derived from the book The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. That was written in 1995 by neurologist Oliver Sacks. And the album sleeve notes include a dedication to film director Stanley Kubrick, who had died a few months prior to the album's release. Initial reaction of this record was mixed. Some publications that had previously praised the band's more rock-oriented Good Feeling, so that was much more distorted guitars and more of a rock-based sound. Some of those critics criticized the shift towards something that was a little bit more melodic and a little sad, melancholic, right? That the vibes of this record.
Yeah, definitely.
It did enter the chart strongly, but lost steam quickly as they failed to get more radio play. But their third single, Why Does It Always Rain on Me, gained steam up the charts, particularly after they performed it at the Glastonbury Festival, where it actually started raining as soon as they started singing the chorus, Why Does It Always Rain on Me?
Wow.
And so that kind of... there was a video of that, and it kind of, people were like, oh my god, it started raining right when they did. So it kind of made its way a little bit across the internet. Like, we're kind of at that time now where internet is picking up certain things, and so as a result of that, the album climbed back up into the charts, eventually hitting number 1 in the UK, and it eventually became the third best-selling album in the UK that year. Writing to reach you, that song, those chords were taken pretty much directly from Oasis's Wonderwall. And also, Do You Know What I Mean? So, and if you guys, I don't know if you heard this, but in 2004, both Writing to Reach You, Wonderwall, and Wonderwall were mixed together with Green Day's Boulevard of Broken Dreams into a mashup called Boulevard of Broken Songs. So I've actually heard that, and it's like all three of those songs are basically the same song. They just overlap different parts at different times. So I believe we are going to be covering the Invisible Band in next season of CTS next year, and we'll get to more bio at that time. Let's start with who goes first here? Josh, let's start with you. What did you think of The Man Who?
Yeah, Travis is. You guys must have. I remember you guys name checking this band when we first met, like in grad school or something. But that being said, I don't think I ever listened to them or anything. Or I must have heard "Why Does It Always Rain on Me?" That sounds familiar.
Yeah,
so
that was the
along
big
the
one
way.
from this. Yeah.
And this album, I was a little kind of like lukewarm on this album the first listen, but this album really grew on me once I kind of got into the vibe. I think the thing that was holding me up, I was like, this album's too melancholy. It's like every song is kind of like a little sad boy music at times. But I think once I got kind of listened to it more and kind of plumbed the depths a bit, I kind of got what they were going for. I think there's a good songcraft on here, good songwriting and good song construction. I think they do have a knack for writing like a good kind of catchy pop song. I think there's many examples of this on here. Waiting to Reach You, the opening track, is like that. Driftwood, Why Does It Always Rain on Me? Even something deeper, kind of like She's So Strange, which is like very Bowie-esque. Could be like a Bowie song for all we know. It sounds that similar. They're all pretty strong examples. I get a lot of Radiohead on this, that As You Are sounds like Tom York when he sings that song. And so it does kind of, as good as it is, it does kind of like remind me of like a lot of other British rock bands as well. So it's, I guess you could say it's a little derivative, but like at this point, like a good song's a good song. I like you mentioned the Byrds and the influences. I definitely hear that. There is some like jangle guitar mixed with like kind of the distortion guitar. And so that's fun and appealing. And it's got these kind of, at times, got these like soaring choruses where they build, and he sings. So it's Chris Martin at this time, Matt? Like on
no,
this
he's
album?
not in the he's not in the band. This is Fran Healy, Dougie Payne, Andy Dunlop, and Neil Primrose.
And so Fran Healy, he's the lead singer, right?
He's a lead singer, guitarist, a vocal. He plays guitar, vocals, piano, harmonica. But yeah, he wrote all the songs. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Fran Healy that I'm hearing. He's kind of got like a higher register voice. It's kind of wispy at times. So that your mileage may vary on that. So I like this album. I think it's a very good album, and I liked it the more I listened to it. There's something missing though that like makes me think like, oh, this is like a hidden gem, or like this is one of the great like British rock bands. Maybe I feel like maybe this next album that you talked about, maybe it'll take me there. Maybe if I hear something kind of more up tempo from them, that will kind of break the tie or how I feel about it. And so like I enjoyed it. It just didn't kind of, maybe my expectations were too high, or maybe I just kind of was like a little down on it after the first listen, but it did grow on me. I do like it, and I am interested to hear more from them. So it's a thumbs up.
Yeah, well, I was definitely familiar with this album. I remember listening to this quite a bit when it came out. I did become familiar with it through, I heard Why Does It Always Rain on Me and Driftwood very quickly, in quick success. I think I was listening to like a college radio station or something, and they played it, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting track. And then somehow I was able to get access to the album pretty quickly. And so it went from hearing them to having the album pretty quickly. Maybe, and I remember not necessarily buying it. Somehow I became, in possession of it and listened to it. So, when I remember when I was listening to it contemporarily, it seemed a little bit I think at the time more profound to me than it did listening to it now lyrically. As you said, Josh, it like it codes for me at this stage of my life as a little bit sad boy, and that which is fine. I can sad boy with the best of them. But I think back then I thought the lyrics were a little bit more weighty, and then when I listened to them this time, I was like, they really they kind of are like the analogies are very. It's like that thing, and maybe I have too high a standard, but it's that thing where the analogy is so obvious that it's like there's people that are like, it is like driftwood, and then it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, that's not exactly like a deep, analogy, right? It's pretty like on the nose. So that was my one takeaway. I think also when I was listening to this, you're right, Josh. Like I knew Radiohead. Radiohead was evolving, right? Radiohead was evolving to OK Computer Kid A Radiohead, which I still liked, but it was different. And it was like, oh, this is a nice little nostalgic look at the type of music that Radiohead made. And I remember even back then going, it sounds like a British Birds kind of was my take at that very time. So when you brought it up, I'm like, well, yeah, this definitely has a lot of Birds in it. Like some of these choruses feel like they could be straight out of some of the Birds albums that we covered, especially the ones from like the before they go full alt country, right?
I'm trying
like
to just remember the Birds albums, the names of the Birds albums.
Younger Than Yesterday, right?
Yeah,
that one. And
what was the one where they were
the Notorious Bird Brothers, like that era of the Birds, right? The Notorious Bird Brothers and Younger Than Yesterday, that period. Like that's the period that I. Not as early as Mr. Tambourine Man, not as late as Sweetheart of the Rodeo, right?
Right.
But anyway, going off that, and then there's a little bit. They were kind of lumped in as, like you said, Britpop, but I guess post Britpop may work because they don't. And outside of their Britishness, right? They don't really remind me of any of the major Britpop bands. And it's funny because we're doing one of the Britpop bands tonight, and outside of their Britishness, I see very little in common with them in 1999, right? In terms of what their sonic, palette is. I think what's hurt Travis a little bit is it went from like, oh, they were the first band that came after Radiohead that was doing the Ben's Radiohead, right? Like, or trying to do that era of some of what Radiohead was doing. And then suddenly that felt like there were like 1,000 bands doing that. Like, Travis begot like early Coldplay and Keane and like all these different bands. And
Star Sailor.
Yeah, and I think just in the morass of that, the specialness, I think a little bit of that 6-month period maybe where they had the lane to themselves, kind of the shine came off a little bit. And that was kind of my takeaway this week. This album is fine. It's pleasant. There's nothing wrong with it. It has re-listenability to me. As you mentioned, Josh, it starts with a very strong opening track, right? It does feel like the type of pop that Big Star or Teenage Fan Club does. So when you name check them, I think initially when you said them, I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. But yes, that's also a lane that this exists in. And, the big songs, Driftwood, Why Does It Rain on, Always Rain on Me, those are songs that it's not hard to understand why they got a following. They're the type of songs that somebody who's heartbroken sings at the top of their lungs, and have a certain emotional resonance when you just want to feel, very directly, I would say, right? Like there's not a lot of subtle in this album. It's it's like, I'm going to tell you the exact feeling that you're going to
hard on the sleeve type of thing.
Yes. And that's okay. I'm not saying that derisively, by the way, but it's a specific type of doing sad, sad boy. It's certainly not like There Is a Light That Never Goes Out type sad boy, right? It's like a very different type of sad boy. But yeah, I think my takeaway was it very much seems of its time. And that is not a bad thing. But like when you're going for like the albums that you remember, right? It's ones that as we do our journey, I think the ones that stick with me are the ones that take elements of the past that I really love and fuse it to something that was contemporary and feels live as we're listening to it in our walk, and even revisiting it, and then stuff that has something that pushes it into sort of a timelessness. I don't know if this album quite has that. I think it's a pleasant slice of life from 1999 that doesn't transcend that. So I would say slight thumbs up, but a little disappointed because I went in remembering that I very much like this album, and I left saying, I like this album.
So, post Britpop, according to Wikipedia, alternative rock subgenre is the period in the late 1990s and early 2000s following Britpop when the media were identifying a new generation or second wave of guitar bands influenced by acts like Oasis and Blur, but with less overt British concerns in their lyrics and making more use of American rock and indie influences as well as experimental music. So that's the opening lines there. And I do remember...
I mean, that is this album. So in
Yeah.
fairness, I mean, I
So
can't
it's
say
less
that's true.
British.
And I do remember reading about them beforehand, because this is when I was really... In 1999, that's when I was a little late to the... Like, I always liked Radiohead, but they hadn't been established in my mind as one of my favorite bands until probably 1998, like a year or so after OK Computer, when I really fell in love with that album. And then revisited the Bends and was like, oh yeah, this is even better than I remember, that type of thing. And then I was kind of hooked. And I remember reading that, like, oh, Travis is kind of like, yeah, like you said, John, I think you said it, John, like the Bends era Radiohead. I was like, oh, I'm sold. Let me at it. Right.
Yeah.
You know? And so I got this record. Oddly enough, I do remember I bought this album my senior year in college. I bought 3 albums in one trip. I bought this, as well as Crooked Rain by Pavement, and Exile on Main Street.
Oh wow.
The Rolling Stones. So that's 3 albums. I remember those 3 albums, getting that. Probably particularly because there were like 3 different friends that I had, and I remember each one of them had one of them had an affinity for the Rolling Stones, another one had an affinity for each one was really into these bands. So
Yeah.
I just remembered that. Anyway, so when I got this record, I really liked how and I still like how it starts with Writing to Reach You. I just think I love the sound of that guitar. It's just it's a great chord progression, right? It's Wonderwall, it's Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
Yep.
It's been repeated because it's really good, right? And I like kind of the effects that they have on that and the way that just the overall sound of it. And then it gets into the Fear, which I was like, okay, it just goes like it's now we're down tempo, right? And now we're
Right.
kind of just gonna sit in this mood, right? And it's got the falsetto of Fran Healy, who by the way has a beautiful voice. Like I think if you just have like the falsetto voice in something like The Fear, and then you hear him belt out a song like Turn, right? Like he's got a great range, he's got a great voice. So I think that is definitely a strength of the band. And As You Are is a little down tempo, and then he kind of brings it up a little bit, and then you get this like really like straight ahead pop song in Driftwood, right? That's super catchy, and then the last Laughter the Laughter kind of goes down again, and then Turn brings it up. So it's kind of this up and down kind of journey for me, and even this time around, and certainly the first time I listened to it, I like the more up tempo stuff better. And it's interesting if you do listen to their first album, which actually before I get to that. Did you guys, so on this listen here, it ends with Slideshow. Did you guys get the secret track at the end of that? Did you get more music after
did.
Slideshow?
Yep.
I did, yes.
Okay.
I actually,
So
because I just didn't turn it off. It just
Right.
came up.
So actually on the CD, it says here on Wikipedia that Slideshow is 10 and a half minutes, but that Slideshow ends at 3:34, and then there's a hidden track which starts at 6:48. On the CD that I had, it actually had 3 hidden tracks. So that the total time of the 10th track is like over 16 minutes. But the first song that you get on that's like the most distorted, rocked out song of this entire record. And that is a more of the sound of their first record. So if you wanted more of a electronic, edgier sound, their first album it's pretty different than this. They definitely went into a different direction with this, with the more melancholy and the better production and whatnot. And so that's just wanted to point that out. But like I think I like the fact that they have the variety, that they can do something that's really poppy or something that can rock out and be like, upbeat, and then they can do something that's more somber, right? And pensive or whatever. And so I kind of see what you're saying, John. Like I still like that. I think it's a very good album. I think they're a very good band, but I hesitate to say that they've done anything here or in their future records that I still like, that kind of puts them up on a different pedestal, right? This different tier.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because like and I don't even know if I would say this. It's because it's of its time. I just think that there's just a little something lacking, right?
Right.
It definitely has a lot of elements that I like, and Travis has plenty of other songs and albums after this that I do very much like. But I would not say that this is a band that I love, right? I think this is a band that I like quite a bit.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes maybe I wish they could turn it up a little bit more, go for an edge more, like do something a little bit more experimental, and because some of these songs, they can tend to drag a little bit at times. But generally speaking, it's a good band. I think of all of these, if post Britpop is a thing, I think this is one of the better post Britpop bands because there's some of those like a Star Sailor or like a Snow Patrol that never did anything for me, right? Coldplay, depending on the album, I definitely gravitated towards. Keen, maybe a song here or there, but like I think Travis is one of the bands that if you're reading about post Britpop, if that's actually a thing, I think that they're one of the stronger representations of that. So overall, I'm thumbs up on it. But I think that they could have taken it up a different level. But I would say Fran Haley's voice definitely stands out. I think he's a definite plus for this band.
Yeah, there's always, I mean, we've talked about a lot of bands. I think they're just missing that like one like special ingredient that elevates them, and they just as a result are just kind of like a B level.
But this is
be a B plus band.
And it just reminds me this is a different kind of take that I have when we talked about the Verve, right?
Yeah.
Like I think I like this better than the Verve. I think that there's more substance here than the Verve. The Verve hit something pretty well and kind of stayed with it. And I always wanted it to kind of really do a heck of a lot more. But Travis, I kind of see what they're doing. They're kind of like, I don't mind the somber nature of it and kind of going through the ups and downs of it. But I think that they have more chops, I would say, than the Verve album, which I don't know. That was a weird, I think John had a similar take to that it was just like, or maybe you too, Josh, like, it's like, I don't know, like it just gets to a certain level and then it just stops,
I think that's
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fine, but anyway.
Or maybe like John, you maybe like Matthew Sweet. That was like a band that John could
Yes.
see, but like it wasn't like next level type of thing.
Yeah, there was absolutely nothing wrong with it, and it has replayability, and it hits a lot of things I like, but it didn't. It was a same thing. You're right, Josh.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good point.